Dobrovechi, good evening. We are very pleased to have you participate in this ceremony today. I want to express my deep gratitude to Her Excellency, the Ambassador of Ukraine in Switzerland, and to the Swiss authorities for all the care and attention which they've given to this event. You will have noticed, Mr. Speaker, that the level of security is high. Normally for such an event, we meet in the university in a large hall. We have the authorities, federal, cantonal, and from the city, and of course from the university. We have the diplomatic corps from Bern, and we have some hundreds of our own council members. Today, because of the nature of the security constraints, we have been more constrained. And although that is a constraint, we are filled with joy that you are here. And we thank you, Mr. Speaker, in what I understand always is a demanding schedule, that you and your wife, Marina, should pay us the honour to join us here today. It is my pleasure now to invite the Rector of the University of Lausanne, Frédéric Herman, to express his welcome to you.
Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, welcome at the University of Lausanne. We have the pleasure of hosting the Foundation Jean Monnet for Europe. And with the few minutes I have, I would like to mention, to give you some insights into the efforts that the University of Lausanne has been doing in supporting Ukrainian researchers since the war started in 2022. Here in Lausanne, we are part of a broader program that is called the Scholars at Risk, and it's a program to support researchers who are in countries where there is war and they are in danger. And as soon as the war started, we activated the program, and we've welcomed 10 researchers to our community, 6 women, 4 men, and these very talented individuals have been integrated within 5 faculties within the institution, which is quite a lot given that we have 7 faculties. So it's quite broad in terms of topic and expertise. And at this stage, now there's still 7 of them who are active academic, really involved into the university and to the research programs. And I can say that what I hear is that they're excellent scientists. So it's an honor for us to have them. And then the collaboration went further. Some of our faculty members have organized workshops. One key workshop was in 2024. It was reproduced in March 23 and then 24. It was reproduced and it's called Ukrainian Studies in Lausanne. And this event is highlighting not only the continuity of a support, but also the active engagement of the Ukrainian researchers here in Lausanne. And on top of that, the Swiss National Science Foundation has launched a program for collaborations between Ukraine and Switzerland. And what is quite interesting is that the scientists who are here have submitted projects with Swiss scientists. And I hope the greatest success, but it demonstrates the ongoing commitment of the collaboration. And I would like to just give you a little individual story. I will not give the name of the scientist, but at the very beginning, we had a very young historian who left Ukraine. She was probably one of the very first one to come, and she faced like many a tormenting situation in March 22. She fled Bucha with a 2-year-old daughter, escaping the atrocities there. And thanks to the support and the link with a professor, she could come here with her daughter and her mother. And then she, in this act of solidarity, helped us integrate the Swiss life and the Swiss research programs. And what I hear is that on the research front, within the archaeology department, she's been particularly noticed for the quality of her work. With the professor she's working with, she submitted a proposal and she got funded for a 1-year program, which was a commitment. And I can say that I could repeat these stories for all the researchers that we have hosted, which was tight links with the university. So it's an honor to have you. I was really pleased when the foundation decided to give the medal to the Parliament. And I hope the times will continue. continue. I had several exchanges with the ambassador. We see each other quite regularly, and I think this is the beginning of longer collaborations. So on this, I thank you very much.
So, dear Mr. Speaker, dear Ruslan, Excellencies, Rector, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Jean Monnet Foundation for Europe, it is my privilege to welcome you this evening to this award ceremony. We here, as you have seen, are the repository of the personal archives of Jean Monnet, marking our foundation as a centre of European heritage, a place of scientific research and collaboration, and a meeting place for sharing ideas. The living legacy of the spirit of Jean Monnet continues to find expression through the occasional award of the Foundation's Gold Medal. Today, our focus is on Ukraine, an EU candidate state, a country defending its sovereignty and territory against a brutal war of aggression by Russia. This year's nominated laureate is an institution whose continuity, courage, and commitment commended itself to our attention. I'm speaking of the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine. I wish especially to welcome our distinguished friends from Ukraine, in particular you, Mr. Speaker, Speaker of Verkhovna Rada, Ruslan Stefanchuk, your wife, Marina, Her Excellency, Ukraine's Ambassador to Switzerland, the Secretary General of the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine, Mr. Stuchny, and His Excellency, Ambassador Baumann, the Swiss Ambassador to Ukraine and Republic of Moldova. It makes, of course, really no great sense to try to overstretch historical analogies across time and space. But permit me to recall, especially for our Ukrainian visitors here today, that Jean Monnet was a man much of whose life's work was marked by war and peace. The First World War and his idea of an Anglo-French purchasing commission, his role as Deputy Secretary General of the post-war League of Nations, his frustrated attempt to form an Anglo-French union in 1940, his nomination by Churchill to be his envoy to Washington, D.C., his mission then to convince the Americans to help France and the UK acquire more weapons, even as the United States then was neutral prior to the bombing of Pearl Harbor in December 1941, a clear echo of Ukraine's needs today. In 1943, as you have seen, with a strong transatlantic supply chain of bombers, arms, and munitions established, Monnet left Washington, D.C., and in Algiers became a member of the French Committee of National Liberation, the de facto French government in exile. It was there that he first revealed to a group of confidants his vision for a post-war Europe based on a supranational pooling of sovereignty in the coal and steel sectors. Monnet, as you have seen, Mr. President, inspired the draft and drafted the Schuman Declaration of the 9th of May 1950, the foundational document of post-war European integration, which began with the relevant and ringing phrase, which I quote, "World peace cannot be safeguarded without the making of creative efforts proportionate to the dangers which threaten it," a sentiment that I believe prefigures and encapsulates President Zelensky's peace plan. Monnet led the French post-war reconstruction and recovery programme, le Commissariat Général du Plan, from 1946 to 1952. A similar effort still awaits its hour of fulfillment in today's Ukraine. He then became president of the High Authority of the European Coal and Steel Community, the first act of post-war European integration, which brought member state coal and steel under a supranational authority, converting the resources that had fashioned the weapons of war into an institution to sustain the peace. There is much in Monnet's life journey and legacy that resonates with this evening's gold medal recipient, the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine, the parliament of a country at war, a polity that in the coming days, with the assistance of Swiss diplomacy, will seek to generate support for a sustainable, just and secure peace, and a country and people whose constitution expresses their aspiration to be part of the European Union and the wider Euro-Atlantic community as safe harbours to underwrite and sustain Ukraine's post-war peace and prosperity. After the Maidan Revolution of Dignity, legislative elections for the Rada were held in October 2014. The European Parliament's Democracy Support and Election Coordination Group decided, and I quote, to consider Ukraine as a priority country for parliamentary capacity building and dialogue facilitation, close quote. An unprecedented memorandum of understanding, never done before by the European Parliament, between that Parliament and the Rada, was signed by Martin Schulz, President of the European Parliament, and Volodymyr Groysman, Speaker of the Rada, in Kyiv in July 2015. They agreed to prepare a report and roadmap on internal reform and capacity building for the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine through the establishment of what they called a needs assessment mission, to be led, they said, by a senior political figure. That privilege and challenge fell to me. Successive presidents and speakers of both institutions have signed consecutive memoranda of understanding, extending and deepening this unique engagement over time. Antonio Tajani, David Sassoli, and Roberta Metsola for the European Parliament, Andriy Parubi, Dmytro Razumkov, and you, Mr. Stefanchuk, for the Rada in the most recent and deepest of the memoranda so far agreed. The needs assessment report was delivered early in 2016, and since then, considerable progress has been made. Further work, of course, remains to be done. You won't be surprised to hear, it's not unique to Ukraine, but everywhere in politics, that while most can favour reform and modernisation, the devil is always in the detail, as regards the chemistry of political consent, and also, of course, the administrative capacity and resources to succeed. This led to the creation of a dialogue forum involving the Speaker and Deputy Speakers of the Rada and the leaders of the Rada factions or their nominees. This dialogue was called the Jean Monnet Dialogues, to seek to establish something that Monnet always believed in, to seek to establish the common interest and build necessary consensus to make progress. These dialogues are held away from Kyiv, affording participants an opportunity for conversation and dialogue outside the confines of day-to-day parliamentary work schedules and agendas which can be so demanding. Our work has continued throughout the war, prepared in advance by visits to Kyiv. The 10th such dialogue was held in Lviv in mid-April, co-chaired by Mr. Speaker and myself. I've been privileged to work closely with the leadership of the Rada and its leaders, and I greatly appreciate the level of openness and cooperation and courtesy which you and your colleagues have always shown us. Let me quote someone long since gone. Inter arma enim silent leges. In times of war, the law falls silent. Words of Cicero from ancient Rome. Democracy and the rule of law are the first casualties of dictatorship and unhappily often also of war. Vladimir Putin is practicing aggression abroad and repression at home. Political opponents are at best imprisoned, at worst in their graves. Russian television, which is under state control, is the medium and the message through which state propaganda underwrites the autocracy. Free media have been shut down or driven into exile. Civil society activists are marginalized, labeled as foreign agents, and attacked. Even mild dissent has been criminalized. Russia's nationalistic authoritarian form of government offers a pretense of pluralism and a veneer of democracy through managed elections. I think there is something contemptible, Mr. Speaker, that such a system now questions the legitimacy of Ukraine's political institutions, even as it seeks to destroy and replace them through a war in total contravention of the fundamental values of the Charter of the United Nations. Under normal conditions, the mandate of the current convocation of the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine would have expired last October, and the mandate of President Zelensky would have expired on the 20th of May this year. This has led to a Russian disinformation campaign, arguing that President Zelensky's hold on power is illegitimate. I find it hard to take seriously any Russian critique about democratic legitimacy. As regards Ukraine's president and the Rada, far from being illegitimate, their continued agency is in fact founded on a respect for due process and the rule of law. Take the case of the Rada. Starting on the day of Russia's invasion on the 24th of February 2022, the people's deputies assembled even as their personal fates and that of the nation remained unknown. They voted to impose martial law, a curfew, and a special entry and exit visa to control the border. Like President Zelensky, the people's deputies also stood their ground. They did their duty. Since that fateful day, and contrary to Cicero's observation cited above, the Rada has continued to do its duty, renewing martial law every 90 days and sustaining Ukraine's legal order through the due process of law, while acting as a constitutional and institutional counterpart and balance to executive-only action. At the 9th Jean Monnet dialogue held last November near Uzhgorod, the sensitive political issues of the extended mandates and future elections of the Rada and President were discussed. After lengthy discussion, there was unanimous agreement, signed on behalf of each faction, and I wish to quote that to you, that future free and fair national elections, parliamentary and presidential, shall be held after the end of the war and at the end of martial law, with sufficient time to prepare for the elections at least 6 months after the end of martial law, close quote. That was negotiated by your peer group, agreed by your peer group, and signed by your peer group. This, to me, reflects an impressive, collective, democratic maturity. By agreeing unanimously, the factions chose not to turn the extended life of the current Rada or presidential mandates into an internal political football concerning their legitimacy. The agreement for at least a 6-month pause after martial law is to permit the best possible preparation of post-war elections, including the production of a revised and updated electoral register. The commitment of all involved is to seek to deliver free and fair post-war elections. Moreover, I believe Ukraine's parliamentary leadership wisely chose not to give an electoral gift to Russia during the war to engage in covert and overt election, subversion and interruption by all available hybrid and military means. The truth is that Ukraine's elected leaders, in a pluralist convocation, by reasoned dialogue and through consensus, chose to respect their constitution, which for the Rada precludes elections during martial law. They revealed their determination to seek to ensure free and fair post-war elections for the presidency and the Rada. They chose to allow time for the internally and externally displaced and for those serving on a 1,000-kilometre line of contact to be duly registered to validate their participation in the first post-war elections. The extended life of Ukraine's democratic institutions is the expression of democrats, not despots. Democrats committed to due process and the rule of law. This is the antithesis of the despotic and self-serving propaganda of Russia and its disinformation campaign today. Parliamentary politics, and I don't need to say it to you, Mr. Speaker, can be challenging at the best of times and in the best of places. That the Verkhovna Rada in these extraordinary times continues to function and to legislate in far from ideal conditions is a tribute to its resolve to seek to respect its constitutional prerogatives and to fulfill its duty to the people of Ukraine. The reform and modernization of Ukraine is a work in progress, no less for its parliament than for other institutions. But the Parliament's goodwill and the good progress already made deserve recognition. So, Mr. Speaker, for the exercise of its constitutional prerogatives during martial law, for its commitment to stand by the Ukrainian nation's territorial integrity and sovereignty, for its resolve to lead Ukraine into the European Union, and for its readiness to seek consensus through dialogue and mutual respect. I invite you, Mr. Speaker of the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine, please to rise to receive from me, on the collective behalf of the Rada, the Gold Medal of the Jean Monnet Foundation for Europe, with our warmest congratulations, our deepest solidarity. Slava Ukraini. Mr. Speaker, before I invite you to the podium, just one brief remark. Because of the security advice we received, we have not been able to go to our printer to print the accompanying diploma, which we will do after you leave, and we will then, through Ambassador, send it to the Rada. So please, Mr. Speaker.
Вельмишановний пане президенте Кокс, вельмишановний пане директоре Грін, шановний пане ректоре Герман, шановні гості та колеги. Повірте мені, для мене сьогодні велика честь сьогодні стояти тут, за цією трибуною, і отримувати дуже важливу відзнаку золоту медаль фонду Жана Моне задля миру та демократії.
It is a great honor for me to stand here with you today and to receive this honorable award, the Gold Medal of the Jean Monnet Foundation for Peace and Democracy.
Я сьогодні тут сприймаю передачу цієї медалі як особливу честь. Честь, якою визнано роль України, її громадян, захисників і захисниць наших інституцій воєнного часу у захисті миру і демократії, тих цінностей і орієнтирів, тих принципів, на яких побудована сьогоднішня Європа.
And I take this award today as a special honor because this award recognizes the role of Ukraine, its citizens, its defenders, our institutions of the wartime in protecting peace and democracy, those values upon which Europe is built.
Я також розумію, що ця нагорода є і визнанням усього українського парламенту. Усього парламенту, який в перший день війни зібрався разом і сказав, що від сьогоднішнього дня у нас не буде фракції груп, у нас буде єдина фракція, ім'я якій Україна.
And of course, I understand that this award is also the recognition of the commitment of the Ukrainian parliament. The Ukrainian parliament that gathered on the first day of the war and said that from now on there are no factions or groups, there is only one faction in the parliament and its name is Ukraine.
Тому дозвольте мені сьогодні від імені усього депутатського корпусу Верховної Ради України подякувати вам за цю нагороду. І я хочу завірити, що український парламент як єдиний законодавчий орган і далі продовжить рухатися шляхом змін, шляхом прийняття необхідних політичних і законодавчих рішень для того, щоб Україна мала шанс повернутися до свого європейського дому.
And on behalf of all the MPs of the Ukrainian parliament, I would like to thank the Jean Monnet Foundation for this award, and I would like to assure you that the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine, as the only legislative institution in Ukraine, will continue to do its legislative work to make sure that Ukraine moves along the path of European integration.
Шановні друзі, сьогодні для мене особлива честь отримувати її тут, в цьому місці, де витає дух Жана Моне як засновника великої європейської родини.
And it is a huge honor to receive this award in this place here today, in the place where we can still feel the spirit of Jean Monnet, the founder of the wonderful European project.
Я хочу особливо подякувати за ту можливість ознайомитися з бібліотекою, з тими оригіналами документів, які стали основою створення, мабуть, найбільш вдалого проєкту об'єднання усіх країн, які поважають один одного.
And I'm extremely grateful for the possibility to see the library and to see the originals of all the documents that laid the foundation for probably the most successful project of bringing together the countries united by the common idea of respecting each other.
За більш ніж 70 років Європейський Союз пройшов цілу низку трансформацій. Зараз мені здається, що він знаходиться на етапі нового, дуже якісного оновлення. Оновлення, яке можуть надати йому нові члени, і я сподіваюся, серед яких найближчим часом буде і Україна, яка усьому світові довела те, що вона покладе свою душу і тіло за ті принципи і ті цінності, які об'єднують Європейський Союз.
And for more than 70 years, the European Union has gone through a number of transformations. And I believe that currently the EU is standing on the verge of another renewal, the renewal that will be boosted by the new member states. And I hope that Ukraine very soon will become of these new member states. Ukraine, which, as the Ukrainian anthem goes, is ready to give its body and soul to protect all the values upon which the European Union is built.
Особливо я хочу підкреслити, що ті вибори до Європейського Союзу, які відбулися буквально декілька днів тому, вони засвідчили загальну відданість усього європейського народу цінностям, які здатні не просто об'єднувати, а вони здатні перемагати, і в тому числі перемагати у цій війні.
And the election to the European Parliament that took place a few days ago also showed the commitment of all the people of Europe to the values that not only bring the people together, but also the values that will make possible the victory in this war.
Я думаю, що сьогодні уже всі чітко усвідомлюють, що війна, яка розв'язана Росією проти України, це не просто війна між Росією і Україною, це війна проти усієї Європи, війна проти всіх цінностей і всіх принципів, якими об'єднана ця Європа.
And I believe that by now everyone has already realized that the war that Russia wages against Ukraine is not only the war against Ukraine, but also the war against Europe and against all the values and principles that bring Europe together.
І я переконаний, що основною помилкою Путіна було не те, що він переоцінив свої сили, а було те, що він недооцінив цінність і єдність Європи.
And I believe that Putin's main mistake was not the overestimation of his own military strength. His main mistake was the underestimation of the strength and unity of Europe.
Шановні друзі, ви знаєте, попри війну, Україна не відвернулася до своєї цілі. І наш шлях до Європейського Союзу, він не просто бюрократично закріплений в Конституції, а Україна впродовж цього часу робить все необхідне, щоб наблизитись до тих стандартів, до тих принципів і до тих цінностей, які об'єднують Європу.
Dear friends, the war could not divert Ukraine from reaching its goal. And the integration to the European Union is not only enshrined in the Constitution, it is also something that we do every day, that Ukraine does every day in order to stand for the standards and principles and values that unite Europe.
Я хочу нагадати, що наприкінці минулого року Європейська Рада прийняла єдине можливе і правильне рішення, відкривши перемовини з Україною. І я вкотре хочу подякувати європейським лідерам, я хочу щиро подякувати усім європейським інституціям, включаючи Європейський парламент, за всі ті політичні рішення і підтримку, яку ми отримали з їхнього боку.
At the end of last year, the European Council took the only right and logical decision to open the negotiation process on Ukraine's accession to the EU. And once again, I would like to thank all the European leaders and all the European institutions, especially the European Parliament, for the political decisions and the political support at this time.
І зараз ми знаходимося в процесі нового етапу, який є дуже важливий для України. Це етап безпосереднього процесу переговорів. І я сподіваюся, що вже ближчими днями Україна отримає цей етап. І сьогодні перед парламентом виникне новий виклик. І цей виклик буде стосуватися в першу чергу зберегти єдність, зберегти консолідацію, зберегти ефективність українського парламенту.
And today, of course, we are all looking forward to the official initiation of the negotiation process, and we really hope that this will happen in the near future. And the Ukrainian Parliament will play one of the central roles in this respect, and will ensure the unity, the consolidation, and will take all the necessary efforts along this way.
І для нас дуже важливо дотриматись того, про що ми говорили на діалогах Жана Моне. І, користуючись нагодою, я ще раз хочу подякувати президенту Петру Коксу за всю ту важливу роботу, яку ви робили і робите для консолідації українського парламенту в цей дуже важкий час.
And of course, this brings me back to the Jean Monnet dialogues and the things that we discussed during these dialogues. And taking this opportunity, I would like to thank once again to Pat Cox for all the support that you have been giving to the Jean Monnet dialogue process.
Я особливо хочу підкреслити вашу мудрість і наполегливість, тому що мені здається, що особливо за останні роки ми завдяки діалогу, де є дві рівних сторони, знаходили вихід з дуже непростих рішень, дуже багато про які ви сьогодні озвучили.
And I would like to especially thank you for your wisdom and persistence, because over the past years, it is thanks to these dialogues that we have been able to find solutions even to the most difficult and challenging issues, and we were speaking like equals among ourselves.
Без перебільшення я хочу сказати, що, мабуть, одною з неоціненних заслуг діалогів Жана Моне є консолідація навколо легітимності української влади і того, що вибори відбудуться після завершення воєнного стану. Я хочу нагадати, що вперше про це було заявлено якраз на 9-х діалогах Жана Моне, і це стало новиною, яка вкотре об'єднала українську націю і весь цивілізований світ.
And one of the invaluable things that happened thanks to the Jean Monnet dialogues was the fact that this process helps to ensure the legitimacy of the Ukrainian state, and the decision to hold the elections after the end of the martial law was first made public after the 9th Jean Monnet dialogue, and that was the decision that once again helped to unite and bring together both the Ukrainian nation and the whole civilized world.
Окремо я хочу згадати 10-ті діалоги Жана Моне, які я буквально нещодавно мав честь відкривати з президентом Коксом. І це справді був дуже серйозний діалог, тому що до останнього ми не знали, чи ми вийдемо на кінцевий документ. Але завдяки мудрості всіх сторін, завдяки мудрості президента Кокса ми вийшли на дуже важливий результат, окремі частини якого вже імплементовані, окремі частини якого знаходяться в роботі.
And recently I had the honor of inaugurating the anniversary 10th Jean Monnet dialogues in Lviv together with President Cox. And we had very serious dialogue, a true dialogue, and there were times when we didn't know whether we would agree on the final document, but thanks to the wisdom of all the parties and thanks to the wisdom of President Cox, we managed to adopt the final document, and the provisions of, some provisions of this document have already been adopted and implemented, and some are in the process of being implemented.
Шановні друзі, ви знаєте, окремо я хочу відмітити Європейський парламент, тому що сьогодні президент Кокс дуже чітко охарактеризував перелік президентів Європейського парламенту і перелік голів Верховної Ради, які залишили своїми підписами присягу відданості європейським цінностям.
And dear friends, I would also like to compliment the European Parliament. And today President Cox mentioned a list of the presidents of the European Parliament and the speakers of the Verkhovna Rada, who basically, with their signatures under the memoranda, they gave this vow to support all the values that Ukraine undertook on itself.
І я переконаний, що оця історична тяглість українського прагнення повернутися до Європейського дому, ця тяглість довіри з боку Європейського парламенту і ця спадковість у наших взаємних відносинах, вона неодмінно дасть свій результат вже найближчим часом.
And I'm absolutely confident that this historic continuity of Ukraine pursuing its aspiration to return to the European family, and also of the trust that we enjoy from the European Parliament and the European institutions, and all the efforts that we pay, will in near future ensure that we reach all the goals that we have set for ourselves.
Шановний пане президенте, шановні друзі, ви знаєте, я, приймаючи цю медаль, хочу пообіцяти вам, що вона віднайде чільне місце в музеї українського парламенту.
Dear Mr. President, dear friends, I would like to assure you that accepting this medal, it will find its proper place in the museum of the Ukrainian Parliament.
І колись якийсь спікер Верховної Ради України, приймаючи в себе президента Європейського парламенту, будуть проходити біля цієї медалі і скажуть, що це був вагомий етап набуття Україною членства, яке вже сталося.
And I hope that one day some speaker of the future Ukrainian parliament, when accepting as a guest the president of the then European Parliament, would walk past a stand where this medal will be displayed, and the speaker of the Ukrainian Parliament will say that the award of this medal marked an extremely important stage on the Ukrainian path to the EU membership.
Тому ще раз дуже дякую всім вам за цю відзнаку для українського парламенту, для українського народу і для нашого спільного майбутнього. Дякую, слава Україні, слава Європі і разом переможемо.
Thank you once again for this award. Forward to Ukraine.
Dear friends, if you allow me, I want that a part of Ukrainian Rada will be here. Will be here in that place, and I want to give you a small gift, but here is a picture of a Ukrainian Rada, yeah, if you allow. Oh, well. Oh. This is a building of Ukrainian parliament. Mr. President, no, because he many times been here. But I want that this picture will be here, and when you too will come through this picture, you remember about the Ukrainian Rada, and me, when I will walk from this medal, will mention about this moment. Thank you very much, and
Thank you, Ruslan.
Let's be together. Thank you.
So, on behalf of our foundation, let me thank you. I look forward to Gilles to find some prominent and appropriate place to display this with pride. Can I just tell you, if you can see it, this is a neoclassical style building. It's on the banks of the Dnieper River in Kiev. And on the first day of the war, when the president showed his bravery and said he was staying, and that when the Russians came, they would see our faces and not our backs. The same was true in the parliament. And 300 deputies gathered. And I know from Mr. Stuchny, as they gathered to do their duty, an elite group of Russian troops in a fleet of fast helicopters flying low by the contours of the Dnieper River were coming to decapitate Ukrainian democracy. Happily, some of them were destroyed and they turned back. And Mr. Stuchny had to organize the safe passage of the 300 deputies in 20 minutes or less to get them to a place of safety, in case already in the first hours of the war that Ukrainian democracy should perish. So do not underestimate the moral courage of Ruslan and his colleagues. And that's why we have chosen to honor you, because you are exceptional. Thank you.